Hello.
Rinpoche?
Yes, can you hear me?
Dashtitele Rinpoche, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Happy Losar.
Thank
Oh,
you.
happy Losar. Happy Sakadao.
It's Losa. It's true. It's really the best Losa.
Every day is a new day, Rinpoche.
Yes. Especially today.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Rinpoche, for joining us
Thank you.
today on this very
Thank
special
you.
day. We are very happy and honored for having Rinpoche at Tushita.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, just online, but hopefully very, very soon in person, Rinpoche.
Thank you. Same to you. Yeah. Looking forward. Okay.
Rinpoche, can we offer a short mandala?
Sure. Please.
Dashi Peki Chochi Metok Tram Irabling Zing Ide Gyampa Di Sangye Zing Kumik Deo Wai Trokunam Da Sing La Shok. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guratna Mandala Kamnyayatayami.
다 들어주게 많지 않은 상말로 사면 왜? 사면 오케이. 다 들어주게 겨울음치 송절을 지난 좀 많지 자리였고 중요를 엔딩이 경고름치 송주 깔이야. 그런 거다 전주도 심기 domba ze nang che ane ran zhe ta tang da sem na lo ya ji ge nyong ke bar jin so ji ta dang zo ta jue me ma yin ba de yo ma de jue me chu de de ji ye ba de and you say da ju ji juan shuo ang ye sang ji chu zo ma shi ni ge ran zhe ane de sem ba sang bu de ane ya kong ba xie ju shi shuo a.
And so this morning, most of you were able to join the teachings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and at that time, His Holiness, this morning, His Holiness bestowed on the participants the Bodhisattva vows, and so we probably have a very, there's a kind of special feeling or experience that has come from that. Although it probably is, it's probably not uncontrived, but it's in some sense contrived. But still, when we recite the Mahayana refuge prayer, then so this sort of new experience is kind of awokenness. And so when we recite the Mahayana refuge prayer, then try to bring that, try to base it on that and bring it to mind.
Sanje che don su je che nam na shang shu ma don da nen je ro je da ye je ro je be zo nam je ro na pen je sanje ro bo jo sanje che don su je che nam na shang shu ma don da nen je ro je da ye je ro je be zo nam je ro na pen je sanje ro bo jo sanje che don su je che nam na shang shu bo ro do da nen je ro je da ye je ro je be zo nam je 다게 전조제베 저 남게 다게 전조제베 저 남게 저나 편지 상계로버 저 동년인지 정도 주고야 너무 제질 선생 관계 된저군 상나도 뭐 된진자조나 저한테 저 현재 저 그러면 승로군 따위 계산 타르바 되게 좀 세베 주베 답변 잡아야 현재 신이 되라 자제로 알았어 다들 송주 조의 남미 경우를 지기 사신 개발직 낭차를 방아저버지 휴질질 슈에 믹스 요마를 다 이나양으로 조랭선으로 붙이 다른 투진 개발진인데 계산에 부지다기 들인 세상 두산들이지야 엔지란지 가리 신이 전에 직시하고 요송도 애에게 당아저 토픽 티 it's a push number understand. Calming one's mind to achieve a great purpose. 랍시다. 네 미망고 용해 액션도 나왔다. 그래서 제목이 자 같이 다디 전다디 그선 다른 식의 정보를 지기다. 아 세부 휴지 가능 좋아. 다디 제상가 가란주 내가 치슈의 당부에 그런 소부절이야. 근데 걸로 패야나. 아니 다 조디 상계기 취세디 아니 랑게 셈드나 안 대화당 아니 수수기 쪽 수수 제공리스 디종와 어디 인도 잠배 수수 맞잡나 아니 신이 현지 용지 아니 캡투세데 상계기는 캡투 말이스 제 장가디 인도 랑조 수수 랑기 수수 캡투버지 인지미지 최고로에서 제장가 다 드링 아주 시에게 죄제디 군등 사부슈지 송사브래요. Calming one's mind to achieve a great purpose. 어디 다 군등 대시에 마선에 나와서는 그래. 다디 드링 디단 아니 제제다 다 산지 좀 된디 다 제바 망보 주변 안에 다 드링 제신 다 수맘 시지도 시제 지구요래 안 드린 좀 지차샤베나 산제베제바 아니 되네 지기 가수래 굿담베제바 아니 되네 딱 계주주 대딩이 차디도 아니 되네 지기 딱 굿담베제바단 굿담베제바데 믹스에 차야디 아니 산제베제바데다 다 단다 야 다된 투주디단 기기요만 되던 조고고 제바니디 사침부 차기요다 구담베 제바 야
하게는 구담베 제바데기 거기
구담베 제바데 사침부 차야디 아니 상제베 제바데 제바당 아니 조고고베 제바 근데 중부 인자 한 구담베 제바데 사침부 지고로 받는 어디 인도다 다른기 투진디 투진 자신 무시비 차고요래 아니 디리샤다 좀 된디기 남중어란 저기 버드데이 송지 버드데이 셀레브레이트 쉐베가브리아 아니 좀 된디 쇼유나 당 아주 깨끗이니 좀 된디 군들다 배 다시 딜레이 쇼고요래 다이나야 좀 된디가 아주 수녀만 나오는 거야. 다 삼로야 아주 코르토 있나? 아주 배 priceless. 답배 군에 전에 배좀 된디가 안줄이야 수련한 샤조디 다 파베 덴바시들이 다 알아주 대과 등내 송데 기부 중의 초고는 송 기부 등기 초고는 송데 기부 챔벽이 초고 탐제 아니 파베 덴바시 나는데야 두고요. 근데 다봐 동아기 초고디야 덴바시 나로 두고요. 지장가 덴바시지 방고 좀 된디게 상제바당 안저는 예바데 낭샤 다기다 주주되다 아데 인도 점에다 좀 된데리야 아주 마선에 다파 repay his kindness 때 야워름지 따라시고 송송아 당아주 파 거딘 섭투야르디 아니 공개 송샤바들이야 말한주 삼모당야 드레스 어다딩 알아주 드린 말한주 좀 된디게 거딘 서비스도 말한주 근데 야워름지 거딘다 좀 된디 거딘 서비스도 아주다 덴부시 토네 삼모당야지 두신다
and so this morning His Holiness gave us, a profound and vast teaching, and so in the sense that he gave us such a profound and vast teaching. So here today was I don't have anything that's really important to add to that, to what His Holiness has said. So we'll sort of maybe for us to discuss some of the topics that were brought up. So today is a very special and important festival in the Tibetan calendar, and in the sort of Buddhist calendar. And Tashita had requested me to please say some words on this important festival day, and they asked me to. So I came up with the topic of calming one's mind to achieve a great purpose, which was mainly I mainly thought of this topic in order to attract more people. I'm only joking there, so when His Holiness was in His Holiness's teachings this morning, particularly when he was speaking to the Mongolian group, he clearly said that in relation to how we engage with the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha Dharma, in terms of trying to achieve our purpose and happiness through the Buddha Dharma, it's very important to understand that it's extremely important to understand that there's no one other than oneself who is our protector, who is our refuge. This is a point that His Holiness made very clearly. We're not even thinking about other forms of protector. Even the Buddha, in some sense, is not our refuge and protector, in the sense that it's very important to understand that we ourselves are our own refuge. We ourselves are our own protector. That was a point that His Holiness made very clearly. And so most of what I'd like to speak about today is in relation to this idea, and also, to relation to what His Holiness talked about, but in relation to being one's own protector. And related to this is when we talk about the Buddha's activities. So today is one of the most extremely important Buddhist festival days, where we celebrate the birth, the enlightenment, and the parinirvana of the Buddha. And particularly we think of the birth and the enlightenment as two of the most important activities that the Buddha performed. But also, we can add into that, not specifically related to this festival day, the other very important activity of the turning of the Dharma wheel. So, immediately, which is extremely important in the sense that very soon after the Buddha had attained his enlightenment, he turned the Dharma wheel of the Four Noble Truths. And usually we, in terms of celebrating, so today we can say it's the Buddha's birthday. And in terms of celebrating birthdays, we usually think, about offering the Buddha a cake or something like that, or other ways in which we might do that. But one of the priceless qualities of the Buddha's teachings that we really have to engage with is the turning of the wheel of the Four Noble Truths. And we can say that the practices of the middle and
Simon, you missed a little bit the fun part.
Yeah.
Buddha, normally Buddha give us what we give for the people's birthday. On that occasion, we give them a present, a cake or a gift or something. But Buddha has given us something very priceless that we cannot even compare with any kind of gift that we can offer to Buddha, which is the Four Noble Truth. So that's why I'm saying Buddha has given us such a priceless gift already. So now, in order to repay his kindness, today is the day. So that's what His Holiness said. So Simon, now you can.
So His Holiness, in order to, and so this priceless gift that the Buddha has been given to us of the Four Noble Truths encompasses all of the practices within the, you know, the medium scope, the practitioner of medium scope and the practitioner of the higher scope. And even we can say that even all of the practices of Tantra can be, you know, subsumed within the framework of the Four Noble Truths. So the Four Noble Truths is the first teaching of the Buddha given after his enlightenment. And in order to, you know, to repay his kindness, you know, that's any other gifts that we would receive on our birthday, or would be nothing compared to this teaching that was given about the Four Noble Truths. And so we have to think of a way in which we could be able to repay that priceless and extraordinary kindness. And so today, you know, so the way to do that is to the way to repay that kindness is to contemplate what is stated and presented there in the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. And so His Holiness said very clearly today that the way to really repay that extraordinary kindness of the Buddha is to contemplate and engage with the teaching on the Four Noble Truths. So that's what I would like to sort of talk about a bit today.
당아랑 도망 제지다 밥이 된 것이 저기 장가로 잡 어느 섬으로 또 코르투니냐냐래 다 개지슈디 말한주 땅 아란도 보지 섬당도 남샤 준도 밥에 된 것이 섬당도 당보 동해대 봐 세도 점배 아니 아란주 아니 민두베기 아니 지기 동해 세지 삼로 디빵고레 디메버소고레 세지 삼로 만도지기 동해 덴바 디기 동해 덴바 디기 아니 삼로 친지로기 년불로 전환지 아주 남규 삼로 치라 땅이 맵선 치래 다디 인도 그상 얘기 개인기 숭주 지갑이야 현재상가 덴바실이야 아니 지단에 다 용자기 제시 덴바실이야 지기 가소래 denshigi 장애 쓰르바 덴발이야 심 송고야 아니 딕 내가 가발토 그래 세도 잠배 아니 남 균도 남샤 균도 간들 따지기 가소래 주 딘디스람들 다 타고들 먹었지 아니 지경기 원도 제니 아니 누구니 대체 아니 지델은 대배원도 제니 아니 그래서 우리 람된당 고den이 지지 도스지 송버레스디 아니 대바시 제시도 중요해 나 이나양 제시 띵규 나로라 남샤준도 용라마인 제시 찍을 가려를 지지긴 수고도시나 제장가 뎀바시디 송고야디 친지로 시 중요레스 친지로 시 여자 친지로 시디기 년부들이야 아니 뎀바시 송고레스 제장다 디송도 다 친지로 시디 가르레스라도 아니 제장가 직다 아니 체다 아니 틀수도 따와 아니 자와매 버다와 시지 시송도 와
And so, you know, most of us are able to, you know, count out on our fingers the Four Noble Truths, enumerate them, and you know, we have contemplated them a little bit. We got some idea of what they're about, but you know, for me, when I think about the Four Noble Truths, I have this sense that it's, you know, but let's take let's say in relation to the first noble truth, the noble truth of suffering, it really feels like something you know, unpleasant that I don't wish for, you know, suffering which comes which I don't wish for, and very much that sense in which you know, the teaching on the noble truth of suffering engenders that sense of you know, really kind of wishing to abandon something, to destroy it, to make it non-existent. And we never think of the Four Noble Truths, and let's say in this context, the Noble Truth of Suffering, in the sense that they might, the teachings on each of those Noble Truths might be able to counteract kind of inverted, mistaken views that we hold. So my teacher, when I was receiving some teachings from one of my teachers, he gave me he explained to me a presentation which is not the common explanation as I've just described, but he explained that within because we have to think about if we think about the Four Noble Truths, then immediately it comes up, why is it specifically and definitively the four? Why are they definitively four? What does that contact with? What's the meaning behind that? And normally we would say, that not to make it too complicated, that we could think about it in terms of mundane or kind of worldly engagement, which are the first two truths, the Noble Truth of Suffering and the Noble Truth of the Origin of Suffering. And then we'll call it super mundane or beyond the worldly, where we talk about the Noble Truth of Cessation and the Noble Truth of the Path. And that's a kind of more kind of common explanation, about more general explanation of how the Four Noble Truths are specifically, certainly only four. But in the Tengir, my teacher explained to me that in the Tengir, there is a less common explanation, which explains that the Four Noble Truths in terms of four kind of inverted or utterly mistaken views, and that the explanation of each of the Noble Truths is a antidote to four particular inverted, mistaken views, which are the view of the transitory collection, the view of the transitory collection, the view of nihilism, the view of a kind of eternalism, we can say, and then the view of the mistaken view of non-activity, or not performing activity, or not performing action. So these are the four inverted or mistaken views that the Noble Truths can be counted as acting as antidotes.
When I heard about this explanations from my teacher, then I feel a little bit satisfied, because for a long time I was thinking, when we talk about suffering, the first Noble Truth, when we talk about suffering, then there is always we have to add truth after this. For that reason, I was thinking, if we say the suffering and the cause of suffering, so why do we need to put a truth after that? So now when I hear this explanation from my teacher, then I felt my doubt was answered, and I feel quite satisfied. But this is my own satisfaction. There could be mistaken, but it's your own risk. You have to also check. So that was in that. 제가 다 단다 친주로 시기 아니 년부터야 아니 밥에 덴바시도 송거래 세도 아니 동해 덴바디 가르기 년부로 송거래 세도 지덕 년부로 송거래 남규 지덕 년부로야 가사게 다음에 송거 제마도 지기 아니 다 지금 메다바고 말로 송거데 송거래 마도 아니 동해 덴바 두콤세티 용라스케 마제 따디기 가르고 두슬라도 삼로지도 스타운드 아주 풍부 미다바레 아니 강사 딱바레스지 두다마 말하는 쪽이 또 무슨 캔에 지금 말해대 아니 두다마 캔에 또 용jo 다 이나양아라는 쪽이 짐복군다 징아라는 줄에 요르바 대인도 점배 진주군다디 말하는 줄에 요베 딱 가르쳤을라나 딱 그냥 드시디 뭐가시 개치슈 들으셔 당부대 아니 풍부 미다바 임바 켈레 풍부디 간사데 풍부디를 베스라도 말하는 줄 말에 삼삼주요 인도 점배 다디 제장과 풍부응아디 풍부응아디 레록시 간사주 삼디도 풍부응아디 동료된 버레스 지지를 시작하고요. 얘나야 간사디 동료된 버레스 시작하고요 말. 디기다 니모델이야 간사양 동료된 버레 가르치는스나 간사 스니디 풍부를 파텐 샤버바스. 풍부세진 나라 간사 샤버 나도 간사 스니디 풍부를 로스면 도와. 디인도 점배 풍부 동해레스 랍차도 간사양 동해레스 타 쳐버리. 슬라도 점배 아니 어쨌든지 직다 시도 풍부를 떼범에베 와 세직도 삼로당에 딜라 내가디 믹스해지도 와.
Sure. And so here, in terms of the four, in terms of the Four Noble Truths, this unusual explanation of how the Four Noble Truths are stated, which act as an antidote to these four kinds of inverted, mistaken views, then taking the first one, the truth of taking the first truth, the truth of the noble truth of suffering, and how does it act as an antidote to the mistaken view of the transitory collection? And normally when we talk about the antidote of the view of the mistaken view of the transitory collection, we usually talk in terms of meditating on selflessness, or at least impermanence, and really selflessness. We always think of that as the antidote to the mistaken view of the transitory collection, but we don't think in terms of meditating on the truth of suffering as acting as an antidote to the mistaken view of the transitory collection. So how do we understand this? And so, in different tenet systems, you can talk about how there are different tenet systems. There are certain tenet systems which state that the aggregates are impermanent phenomena, but the person is a permanent phenomena. Although we would argue that this is kind of an intellectually acquired view. It's not an innate view. But actually, there's that sense in which some people say that the aggregates are impermanent and the person is permanent. For us, the most important point here is that if we say the aggregates are impermanent, then we say the aggregates are impermanent, but so we say, and if we say the person is not the aggregates, then is there is there a self which is something other than the five aggregates? And if there's a self which is other than five aggregates, it'll become a little bit like this view I talked about. But basically, we can't posit a self. We can't posit a self without a self, at least in relation to the aggregates. So, for instance, if we say that the five aggregates are suffering in nature, then or the noble truth of suffering, the five aggregates of the noble truth of suffering, then we're also going to, because the person is closely related to the five aggregates, whether we talk about it being objectively different or not, but we still say that the person, we'd have to say that the person is also the truth of suffering. And so because the person is posited on the basis of designation, which is the the basis of designation for the person is the aggregates. And if we say that they are in the nature of suffering, then we'd also have to say that the person is also in the nature of suffering also. And so and through this saying that the aggregates of the suffering, this helps. So then if we have to accept that the person is in the nature of suffering, then this helps us in a way to counteract our view of the because of the transitory collection. Rinpoche digi because of the nanzu gansa digi pumbo digi dunya dambi in batones gansa gi dunya dambi in batongores and di chisu kare jigsaw dawagi nutang kandas chagidu.
풍부 미다바 풍부 동네와 봐 풍부 동네와 송을 봐 풍부 동네와 인도 동네와 나로라다 제주 쪽으로 와 제주 시티 미다 동네 동안 담에로 봐 세상과 동네 된바도 삼로 땅에 되기 아니 풍부 미다바 풍부 가자고 풍부 동네와 힘바 삼로 야고지 땅 차비 슈라 아니 풍부를 로서 강사 생이지 매바하고 인도 전에 강사 대한 동네 된바래 삼로데 강사 동네 된바에 삼로 코바다 강사 가서그래 풍부를 때문에 이게 생이 주여버들라 네 두고 왔어.
So this intellectually acquired view that the person is different or objectively different or substantially different from the aggregates. So when we say that, when we talk about the four aspects of the first noble truth of suffering, impermanent suffering, empty and self, and we talk about these in relation to the aggregates, and particularly in terms of impermanence and being in the nature of suffering, so we then have the sense of the aggregates. So we sort of explain that the aggregates are the nature of suffering, and if we accept that there's no other, the person is not, other than the person is not other than, is not unrelated to the aggregates, then the person also would have to be in the nature of suffering, and therefore this counteracts. If we understand that the person is the truth of suffering, then this counteracts the view that there is. So the aggregates of suffering, the person that is designated on those aggregates of suffering, and therefore this counteracts the view that there is a self which is other than the aggregates.
This 저장 인제 삼로 당당 되게 안남디우 가지고 풍부 동네와 지구 삼로 당에 되면도 풍부 동네와 삼로야 오주 코르토비나 디기 슈기 람산 아니 가사 동네와 레샤 세치 가사 동네와 레샤 삼로 코바당 가르 코르토고데라나 가사 딱봐 지구 라와와데 제민도 세기 삼로 됐다 코르토고요 디 삼로 코르토바 인자 신의 동네 덴바티 가르기 녀볼로 도버레스라나 아니 직덕이 녀볼로 두고도 랍토고리.
And so in terms of this so this way first of all initially sort of contemplating on how the aggregates are suffering, and then after that through the force of that it's almost it's a kind of impetus to understand that from the force of that comes the understanding that the person is the truth of suffering, and the person and therefore we understand that the person and also the aspects of the Four Noble Truths. So we understand that then we understand that the person is not permanent, unitary, and independent, and therefore this acts as a antidote. So therefore this understanding of the person as the truth of as the noble truth of suffering acts as an antidote to this mistaken view of the transitory collection.
So you have to see the difference. The main point is you have to see a difference between meditating on suffering and meditating on truth of suffering. suffering of truth, truth of suffering.
Yeah, truth, yes, the truth of
The
suffering.
truth of suffering. You have to see the differences.
Mm.
Okay. Now we are moving on to the second one. 제정가다 군중dembe. 다 군중dembe기 안에 체달이야. 님부터 당 가르쳤으나 다 단다 상로 못히네 땅고요. 상로 못히네 땅에 가르쳤으나 풍부 남규 가르 상로 가르쳤으나 풍부 미다바래. 간사 딱바래. 풍부 매바 차르그래. 간사 균투니도 그래. 상로 디어.
그래.
다 디유도 점베 다 간사디 풍부래. 다 도스바 레마레 단다 타 맞지. 도스 다 랍션도 간사디 풍부래 있으나 풍부 균체는 간사에 매바 차르고 그래. 있으나 되게 렌텔이야. 예 아니 간사 신이디 균체가 말이스. 풍부 신이디양 체디기 풍부디 요르바레 마도 지기 당동야 풍부치마 연구레스. 가르제니 세나 레다뉴모니 두아스. 레다뉴모니 수도다 군중데 먹고 나와. 레다뉴모니 요세베 쇼라 가르 용용 비차 쉐바균 가스토레 균 튜비 켜버렸다. 디삼로 야고 코야 돈달이야. 아니 군중데 뭐 디 가서 체득이 뭐야. 아니 좀 된디 송거리스.
And so in relation to the second noble truth, in terms of the so the explanation of the second noble truth, the noble truth of the origin of suffering, what does it act as an antidote to in this explanation? It acts as an antidote to a kind of nihilism, or a form of nihilism. And how does that work? So let's say that we have this sort of sense that in some sense the aggregates are impermanent, but the person itself is permanent. And so if we thinking like that, then there's this sense that the aggregates will cease, but in some sense the person cease at death, but that the aggregates, the person will somehow remain after that. But if I don't want to say that, I don't want to definitively state that the person is the aggregates, but if we sort of follow that reasoning where we have the sense that the person is the aggregates, then if we have the sense that the person were the aggregates, then we would have to accept then that if the aggregates cease, then the person would cease at death, and then the person would have to cease at death. There would be no alternative if we accepted that the person was the aggregates. So, but what we're really saying, and what's being said, is that the aggregates, only the aggregates of this life are what cease. There will be later aggregates of a being, of a particular being, and how do those arise? They arise through karma and the remainder of karma and mental affliction, and so if we have karma and mental affliction, then there's a guarantee that there will be a continuum of consciousness and the aggregates after that. And so the truth of the origin of suffering, which teaches about karma and mental afflictions, then we can is stating that there will, because of karma and mental afflictions, there will be a continuum of the aggregates after death, and it helps to. So therefore, the Buddha, by stating the noble truth of the origin of suffering, is also helping us to get rid of our view, a kind of nihilistic view that everything will cease at the time of death.
맞아. 근데 군중 dembe기 주들어 아니 가서 그래. 군중 dembe 주들어야 고된 송고야지. 고된 송고에 내가데 가와 도샤 슬비점베 아니 제장가 알아서 되게 풍부 유인톤의 연구래. 풍부 유인톤의 연구에 좀 전에 가르쳤나? 풍부 기업을 전년대 레다 뉴모니 공기 지기요래. 레다 뉴모니도 스케 연구를 시작했는데 원아 아니 풍부 가서래 풍부도 유인톤의 로데베이나 가격 매베이나 딱 차로. 지난번 주 남기 유인을 때문에 딱 봤어요. 기지 시기요래. 유인을 때문에 딱 봤어요. 도과 신물을 영어에 가르쳤나? 그도 저디 그랬으나 가에 큐네 매베이나 그거 딱 봐서 봤어요. 삼을 줘. 어디 로도 세비치에도 아니 그 유인트는 얘기 말이지. 가진스나 땅 고된 부지기 남주 친이기 흉나로라야 아니 나랑 좀 실리지즘 지구기 봐. 여기다 배 짜심으로 실리지즘 그런데 가지고 그래 니랭기 풍부 취진. 봐. 아니 가르쳐 랑기 리규 가도 미르 왜 띵도 어마인데. 랑기 리규 아니 가도 미룬비 띵두어 말이스 가도 있는 딩에도 말이스 가진선나 디기 좀전을 가려고 했으나 랑기 주의리래야 안 뮤직이 님부 톰된도와 어디 그기 완남주
네.
디코인도 선배다 신에 디기 리quetil이야 선로 다운도 다 돌드나 레다 뇽문이게 나로네 레게 버치니도 뇽모래 뇽모디 파 투윈도 좀 자와 당진된 기도 당진 될이야 아니 응어스 뉴행기 아니 로디 담에도 베셔럽 되기 당진을 진당어서 게베거니 네 뉴그리 네버마세 디 님부 톰데세디 콜라 미기블 집이 최전진들이다 어디 삼로 다운디 아니 신의 고된디 마 중고도 봐 다디 가르기 딱벌 틀숙세티 틀숙이 녀볼이야 딱벌 두고 그래세티 어디 죽송다
And so following on from following on from the second noble truth of the origin of suffering, then in the sequence then we come to the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. And here where does this, so how does this come in to this sort of explanation? And in terms of so if we've explained that karma and mental afflictions are the driving force which maintains the continuity of the aggregates and therefore of the person, then there may be this kind of view that will come up in us, or a sort of doubt or view which comes up in us, which is to think, well, in that case, then the aggregates would, the kind of continuum of the aggregates would be kind of unstoppable, that there would, you couldn't the continuum of the aggregates would almost become like permanent, because it's kind of like permanent, because it would just be unstoppable. There would be no way if it's continually driven by karma and mental afflictions. And so there would have to be a way to clear those away. And so here in the and so here comes in the noble truth of cessation. And in the debate in the debate literature called Namda the it's there's a particular syllogism, logical syllogism, which is stated in relation to the noble truth of cessation, which says that the subject, the appropriated contaminated aggregates, rangi가 사실 내리기 포모치젠 아니 거기
rangi gun
yeah
가도 미룬베 텐두와 말이스 균 가도 미룬베 텐두와스도 그뒤에 내년에 말이스
so the
아니 dumzendel라 이 dumzendel이야 텐두와 마인데 아니 랑기 규리라 느지기니 뭐 톰된도 와스.
So the syllogism is stated as this is contained in an argument contained in the section on the truth of cessation in Dhammakanti's Pramanavartika, where it says that the contaminated appropriated aggregates, the continuum of those, it's not suitable to say that the continuum of those can never will never be able to be ceased. So the continuum of the contaminated aggregates can never is not necessary that they can never be ceased or never be put an end to, because there is a powerful antidote, a powerful harming force to that continuum. So what to the continuum of the aggregate. So what it's saying here is that and so this is the syllogism for the noble truth of the cessation. And so what it's saying here is that how we have to think about this is in terms of how karma and mental afflictions so first of all, karma and mental afflictions are driving this process, as we mentioned before, but there is and out of those it's the mental afflictions which are creating the karma, but the mental afflictions are driven themselves or underpin themselves by our self-grasping, the grasping an inherent self. And then there is and so in the second half, the reason in the syllogism, there is a force, a powerful, harmful force which acts against, which directly, in terms of the direct way in which each of those minds engage, there's a direct harmful counteractive force, which is the wisdom realizing selflessness, which acts as an antidote to that self-grasping. And so that continuum of the contaminated appropriated aggregates can be ceased with that antidote, and therefore they don't have to arise again in the future. So here the truth of cessation is helping us to believe that there's a kind of eternalism or permanence to the continuum of the aggregates.
시바디 람딩기 님부들이야 아니 자와메 버타와 세티 디 진실로 올로데 자와메 버타와 세티 다 자와메 버타와 디 간조 랍제 약슈난 다 약슈들이 다디 가란조 간조 셈 딜레다 펜부 휴지요리 겐게 다가란 송구도 니 겐게 저장가다 펜부 요나니 가르르스는 가란조 남셰준도 취체단 다 삼부치 땅나 아니 저게 스템나라 람상고라 아니 가서 그래 뇨모 람상 매바 찬로에 직다 람상상 예초조 지기 탑시 세팅에 손로지마도 아니 앞에 뇨모 도좀 다 끼어가만 통만 매바네 다 지기 가서 그래 뇨모 삼주 뇨모 저주 뇨모 진대버리 람상 카테 초세데 카고 레데 이네니 카테 짝인세 삼로딩 안줄레 도무가 디두자베 점된디게 안줄이야 라
난수디 계산에 더벤에 난수기 뉴몬기 뉴몬든즈기 카레
뉴몬기 체요체
아티여바
디 뉴몬기 왕도 손체 아니 다 단다 봐도 런주 뜻지기 뉴몬을 카테자야 마쳔베선로 지레 다 단다 뉴몬을 카테자야게 삼로다 고급지 라베가블이야 안나 남상코라야 셈나로리야 교구교구지 상계에 지요르베 깔리시다 만점니 타르바토베 요르베 아니 지금 다 지기 참럽지 대두점베 소소 깔리시다 마저 이게 강에 막 우주비 와야 선로바 아니 고네는 마 지기 왜럽지 용한치에는 요모 매우 차야선도 삼로 두고도가 어딜이야 이디에 삼바딜 신질로게 따와들라 자와매버 따와서 드리고 디기 님보들 좀 된되게 람덴 송도와 디두점베 람덴 송도 제장가 수수 뇨모토 숨도 수수 카드 짜고 그래스 다 단다 땡기가 좀 끼지 삼는 거니 끼지 축주 종으로 봐 제장가 좀된 되기 얘기 동이 도시들이 지난주에 팬토고 말했다스. 봐. 도기 나로리아 단다 직주와 톱놈디고 취 애니메 주신 얘기 똑바신을 보면 주니 때부터 처벌 주지. 드리지요 말বে 드리지요 봐. 대지가 추스지 좀 좋아. 되게 럽졌다. 단다 디가 딱딱 로시.
So then in terms of the then the fourth noble truth in this sequence, the noble truth of the path, and in this system of being stated in terms of an antidote to the inverted mistaken view that something like we don't have to do too much activity, or we don't have to act too much. It's more like that. And my teacher said to me, "Oh, this really is the best advice to us. This really is of great benefit. This explanation is really of great benefit." So how is this explanation of great benefit? And our own way of practicing tends to be, so, we tend to sort of want to find ways which we can kind of very quickly, we can sort of almost immediately somehow remove our mental afflictions, that we sort of seek methods which are in the sense of how we could just quickly and easily attain the enlightened state. There's a kind of, but our mental afflictions, we've been under the sway of our mental afflictions, not just from previous lives, but from beginningless time. And so we very rarely think or remember or try to bring to mind the sort of way in which we would be able to counteract those men, to find a counteractive force to those mental afflictions. It very rarely comes to my mind. It's more, we're always looking for things which are without too much difficulty, which are not too hard. Even if we go into retreat, we want it to, in some sense, we always want it to be kind of easy, that there's some way that while we're in retreat, some great light will come down and bless us and clear all of these obstructive things away from us. And so this kind of and in the and it's in, there's a very it's stated in one of with the sutras, where it says that the sages can't wash away our negativities with water, and they can't by just placing their hands on, laying on of hands, or blessing the sentient beings. They can't clear away the suffering of the sentient beings. They can't transfer their realizations. The Buddhas can't transfer their realizations from themselves to others. The way in which I offer you liberation is by teaching the reality, the truth of the reality, and that's how I help. So this mistaken view that in some way someone else or something else is going to do the process is the mistaken view. And by teaching the noble truth of the path, this acts as an antidote to that sense in which the sense in which we feel that it's not all us, it's not all up to us. It's something like that we don't have to do all of the activities ourselves. But actually, the Buddha's advice to us in those words is that we need a direct counteractive force which is going to destroy the root of our three poisons, and that's how, and that teaching helps to counteract this sense of the sort of the mistaken view of kase, not having to act, something like that.
어디죠? 다 이 진주로 시디 토네 딘시 임보저단디 직제 다야 덴바시라야 야 그래서 그래 덴바들 시탕이 좀전들이야 아니 좀전직 갈고고 열서도 네 대지송도 지부 진주로체 봐 지부 진주로 주 진주로 아니 타바 진주로 아니 타르바 디톱에 탑암람 아니 진주로 시여베 인자 디기 체도 아니 산지 좀 되기 템바시 송브레스 디도 잠베다 담보 디부 진주로 세디 마란주기 가르서고레 레단 뉴모베 샤마르데 중베기 사제냐 월레베 풍부스그와 풍부디 아니 갈 미장 오지단이 가르스노 미장와레 고 메타바레 동네와레 다메바레 이나야 딜리아 로소 미장와라 장와지 아니 동네와라 대와르지 아니 미타발라 따버지 아니 되네 다메발라 다도지지 디인디 디 디부 친지로도 진샤스 디부 친지로도 진디 디기 디부 친지로 디부르바 디부디 가르레스나 디부디 사전에 원래 부디체 디기 오 두단디 친지로도 진원디 디기 문진 야고 투베질이야 아니 동네데바 숭브레스 다디 남비 용다도 두단디 두르바 데니니바데 레단 용몽 때는 중으로스 말합체 아니 때가서 셈나로야 아니 운주기 제바다 상배 제바다 아니 지조기 제바다 너르드나 주 미팅발레 디부충데 비서는지 유튜브를 디부충한테 삼보당구 미드 아니 좀 된 되게 규친줄로 삼보당도 되게 연보들이야 군중대 마시지 정도와 디니 직돌난다.
아카리 규미팅발레 더블 tumba.
규tum발레 디부 깨고요와. 다 단다 삼로 땅땅이 가르치는 규미팅발레 디부 깨버지 지원도 전에 아니 가서 그래 규친줄로 어떻게 들었어. 좋아.
And so then in relation to so those are four ways in which we talked about the such as the view of the transitory collection and stuff, the antidote to those, and the way that the Four Noble Truths were spoken. And then also there's another way in which the Four Noble Truths are explained as in terms of being antidotes, and also in relation to how the the Four Noble Truths are definitively four and not more or less than four. And in terms of this, in terms of there are four kind of inverted mistaken views in relation to talking about in terms of the kind of tabartobi because of the tabartobi lamgi dinzugi dewacheni debu yushi drea tabartobala
di tanda di shi yongda di 데벌리시 라리안 시에고에 김제 지카르여스나 당예주 지카르여스나 디부친질로 유친질로 타르바친질로 디 람친질로 친질로 시지 예베 인자 디 친질로 세베 된다라 아니 데바시 숨으레스.
Yeah, so in terms of the path which leads us to liberation, then these there are four kinds of the Four Noble Truths are also stated in relation to acting as antidotes to four other kinds of inverted mistaken views. And those four are the view in relation to the result, the view in relation to the cause, the view in relation to the liberated state, and view in relation to kind of the means to attain them. So taking the first two, in terms of the noble truth of suffering, and here not the usual way that we explain this is to say that we talk about the contaminated appropriated aggregates as being created under the sway under the other power, the sway of the karma and mental afflictions, and but another way in which the explanation of the four aspects of the first noble truth of suffering comes at it is to talk about how the appropriated contaminated aggregates are unclean, they're impermanent, they're suffering, and they're selfless. And the direct sort of mistaken views in relation to those are that they're kind of purer or clean, the aggregates are pure or clean, that they're permanent, that they're in the nature of kind of happiness, and that they are the self. And so so here what it's doing is the statements, the stating of the noble truth of suffering is explaining to us the actual nature of those appropriated contaminated aggregates. And so Drabugi intang kandu Drabu sana
Drabu de
Drabu hangi kansana kosu pumbugi nuon pumbini nuon netsugi nuon zunes di kandas di nusun
풍부코랑 가르치려 있을람나 풍부코랑 미상와 동네와 미타바 다음에 말이 제스 이나야 텔레 친줄로도 징기도 친줄로 가르 징기도 미상와라 장원진샤 어디 좀 장대다다 징기도 제장가 드부 친줄로.
So yeah, so it's stated to be holding those views of cleanliness, permanence, happiness or lack of suffering, and self are said to be the result, and then it's stated. So then, by stating the actual nature of them, it counteracts that. The opposite, those inverted misunderstandings of the nature of the aggregates, and by teaching the noble truth of suffering, it identifies the real nature and counteracts that. In terms of the second one, which is the noble truth of the origin of suffering, and the explanation of the noble truth of the origin of suffering being the antidote to the cause, how we can think about it here is how, in terms of the contaminated appropriated aggregates, how do they come about? But if we don't think about them again in terms of coming about through karma and mental afflictions, but instead, if we have an inverted understanding of that, thinks that they came from, a kind of universal principle of the, universal principle, or from Indra or from Brahma, from causes which are so thinking that things are that the contaminated aggregates arise from these is to, in the Buddhist tradition, we're always stating that results or effects have to arise from concordant causes. And so, but here this would be stating how the process of a cause which is concordant with its result would be mistaken, and therefore the truth of the origin of suffering helps us to remove those misunderstandings. So that's in terms of the mistaken inverted views in relation to the cause.
알았어. 다디 디부친지로 다 규친지로 데티버치. 다 타바친지로. 타바친지로 데 조디 가르스나. 다 레당 뉴모 마세베치. 와. 아니 레 잠시 세네 디그레스. 뉴모 세기 삼르치야 마담치. 레 잠시 세야다. 아니 되네 맹아 땡야 손로버 땡려다. 아니 하바도 지기 가르쳐 그랬다. 당전바다 아니 수다 주도수수 디시 망고죠. 저기 아니 가르쳐 것은 라랑게 타바 탑단지 승구 요래데 대수 상말로 타바 친지로 책을 가르쳐서나 뉴몰 뉴도 스타 뉴모만에나 앵아주기 빼지 저기가 남기 도신기 얘가 또나 도심에 봐 말이스 독신 poison tree.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Under the line discontent.
독신. 독신란 하고 봐.
매 contact.
Poison tree.
Poison tree. Yeah, so.
Okay.
So,
독신기 얘가 또나 독심에 봐 말이스.
so.
제장가 곧 싸와네 매버 쇠고나 싸와 용서 등년의 야부지 제주 제비나 아니 아주 묘모 싸와 마손의 용사들 싸와디 당진의 샤스 당진 마세기 봐도 묘모 깨개버디 그레스 어디 수도와 제장가 당진의 만뇌베다 도르는 시에베나 당진의 만뇌베기 아니 탈람 가지고 되면 탈람 상마 친지로 그랬어. 어디 소에라 아니 저장 꼭대 세디 소에 내가 되는 도르다.
And so here in terms of the third noble truth, the noble truth of the noble truth of cessation, and in this explanation, it acts as an antidote to the mistaken views in relation to liberation. And so if we think of let's say that the sense that the karma and mental affliction driving our samsaric process, and then but if we think that only, let's say, out of the karma and mental afflictions, if we think that we need to sort of counteract or cause to cease karma, but we don't pay attention to the mental afflictions themselves, then and there are many explanations of this in different traditions. For instance, there's the non-Buddhist Samkhya school, but many other systems that explain the process of attaining liberation, and the path that leads to that liberation. But essentially what they're doing is explaining but actually we can't count those as paths to liberation. And the reason that we can't count them as paths to liberation is because they don't they don't harm the mental afflictions. So they may sort of in some sense counteract forms of karma, but they don't harm the mental afflictions. And then a good example of this is if you have what's called the poison tree, and if you cut off all of the branches, all of the limbs of the poison tree, but you don't, and just do that, then you can't expect to destroy that tree, the poisonous tree. What you have to do is you have to seek means by which you get at the root of that. You uproot it literally, and then therefore you can destroy it. And so any path which is stated in relation to achieving liberation, which doesn't work to directly counteract the mental afflictions, and of course underlying the mental afflictions is our self-grasping, so that if you so out of the self-grasping the mental afflictions arise, and if you want to exhaust the mental afflictions, you have to exhaust and clear away and counteract the self-grasping. And so any of these systems, whatever it is, which states which explains a path to liberation, but doesn't provide you with a means to harm self-grasping, then those would be mistaken or inverted views in relation to liberation, and therefore here the noble truth of cessation is stated in order to counteract those mistaken views.
다 람친지로 다 람친지로 세디 카드 다 람친지로 그냥 뭐들이야 아니 람데 송버리 람친지로 쓰니데다 두두지 쉬이나 어란주
탑르베
다 람암 탑스바 다 데레 다 탑스네 람서 고란주 람이 인생고요 봐 자장다 람람스도 탑을 거두고요 봐 자장다 탑스네 리도 사면 하나 차지고 있어다 람 남이나 아니 인중기 심비 처음에 심비 켐바 인 먹을 고마르베스 시기스레 아니 쇼울기 시와 자지 때문에 탑디 아니 너르고요레스 탑바토비에게 탑 너바 차브레스 탑 너바 차당데 가르스나 다 디리카 등진이야 마네바 등진의 구조처럼 태그면도나 봐 구조처럼 태그면도나 아니 된저기 탑디 알아서 같이 지지는 깔리 가야 되지 레스 좀네 니미를 송도가 그래봐 가져 깔리 얘기 있네 지난주 차 봄지기 내면 제봄 사게 이내리 다 곰베 로넬로 가지고 곰샤베 있나야 등진은 네 지금은 누구면도나 대서 용서 줘봐 남친지로 등안줄 앞자리지 재상가 디도 점에 알아 저기 최체 세지 고주야디 다 다다 기부 중요급도 송도 요래 다 이내에 오늘 남고산지 베겠다 유는 맨날 님부디 기부 등내 송고도 기부 등내야 다 기부 등내 신의 남고산지 베최 그 다셔던 고주 두야디 가르치는 거완의 송고 요래나 아니 요모 세 탑된 뒷된바데 송데 아니 자장가고 남보산지 투모미비 따따와 세리 디넬레로 봐 어다디 인도점베 간지 당진 만에게 봐도 람 간데지 말한 쪽에 탑 간데지 탑아토베 탑 간데지 가지고 배주체가 있나야 아니 탑 친지로레스 디 야고지 친지로 이바 하코베던 달라 아니 람된 송버레스 어디 지주다 친지로 시기 친지로 시기 다 님부터 도단티.
And so then the fourth one in relation to the path, or as Simon corrected me, the method. So Rinpoche said this the same. The word in Tibetan is tab, but it just means, we're talking about the method or the path in which we, which is used in order to achieve liberation. So the path of the method, which is so the mistaken views in relation to the path of the method of achieving liberation, so why do we talk about? So how do we explain the kind of inverted, mistaken views in relation to the method or the path of achieving liberation. So essentially, it's about any sort of presentation of the path or methods which where it doesn't pay attention to and doesn't engage with practices which cause harm to self-grasping, then that would be considered mistaken in terms of the path to liberation. And so, you know, if it doesn't pay attention to or engage with practices which harm self-grasping, then what we'll end up doing is we, as much as we practice, we'll just get exhausted and tired. You could do hundreds of thousands of prostrations, spend many years meditating, but if those practices that you're doing don't harm your self-grasping, then it's guaranteed that what you're actually doing is a kind of inverted or mistaken path or method. And so this is really very important advice to us. And normally when we talk about you know, sort of entering into Buddhist practice, we talk about, you know, we talk about the three scopes and talk about engaging initially in the Buddhist path from the small scope. But actually, if we really sort of boil down the Buddhist teachings a lot, then it's really sort of the sense of engagement here that we're talking about here, which is in terms of counteracting the self-grasping, a path which counteracts the self-grasping. So it's kind of really connected with the, you know, with methods to counteract self-grasping and remove the mental affliction, uproot the mental afflictions completely. And so this would be more connected in the sense with the beings of the middling scope. And so this is the uncommon view of the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha Dharma. And up and until the time when we our practices are harming self-grasping, until we engage like that, then those methods and the path is a mistaken method or path. And so therefore, in order to understand that, the noble truth of the path was said to counteract that mistaken understanding. And so here we have the four sort of the four noble truths being stated in relation to antidotes towards these four mistaken views.
Oh, so that that the 당에 들이야 용단이 들이 지난주 양내 양도 공부지 셰셰 아니 딘디 친주로 로디 요래세 계제 많이 버체 소소르 요메 양내 양도 삼로당 아니 딘디지 소소라 어디 라베징 할로 두 사고 두나 신이 딘디기 친주로 녀보들이야 아니 좀 된디기 송샤료도 추직 삼로당인데 신에서 샘을 펜송세지 쉐디 샘을 펜송세지 마도 아니 말하죠 망고 지기 로정체당당 최장당데 아니 동예신이 주요래 아니 타르바신이 주요래서도 벽에 요래서 빼져나는 이유에 대해서 말도 아니 소수기 영화라야도 코리아 카코르치 되죠 삼보 방에 또 카고 요자냐 마당이 용식이래 대인도 인지미지 지나죠 대 공부지 싫어 나스 주의이.
And so so there are two, you know, here I've explained two sort of different sort of ways of talking about how the Four Noble Truths act as antidote to these mistaken views. And I request you to, you know, think again and again and again about both of these, not in the sense of a kind of theoretical way in which, oh, do they exist or not exist, but much more close to home. Do I have them in my mind? Do I have any part of these going on in my mental continuum? And if so, then think about the antidotes that were spoken by the Buddha in relation to those whichever mistaken views you feel you have in your own mind, and then you can really say, and then applying those antidotes, and then you can really say, oh, the Dharma is really. Then the Dharma has really, helped me and benefited me. It's our normal kind of way of practice and study is to sort of see them out there or in the text or out there, but it doesn't so often really occur to us that we're talking about. It's our own experience in our own mental lives, in our own experience, and that sense. It comes much less infrequently. This can happen. This is how things happen. But I encourage you to sort of join that to your own experience and not just have it be out there.
근데 이 도시네 휴게 가르스나 딘식이 장애디도 용해야디 좀된디기 디 딘식이 대바실라 장애 가서 대발라야 시르 장애 비게 고림 digdan디 코랑 고림 digdan디 안eng 알아줘 냠nenche 그런 거 돈에 dig나도 봐.
예.
제가 디기 빼들이야 ለም 이가서 가르친 것도 있잖아. 아니 알아줘 소소리야 네바다부터 시주고 그래서 대바시 로정 신인들이야. 아니 소소를 네바다부터 시 아니 상제리야 네바다부터 시 쳬리야 에멘다부터 시 긴들이야. 아니 저기 두시지 레벨 토네 아니 소소 동행이너지 삼로당 동행들이 동행 규디 과리 요구도 삼로당야 아니 동행의 고규 여러 말에 삼로당야 아니 근데 고베 탑디 간디지면 삼로당야 세디 아니 제상가 좀 되게 rimba digdan딜라 아니 균제 rimbe 토네 딘시 코랑기 균제 rimbe 토네 digdan 아니 냠네 그봐 시제기 토네 도랑주 냠네 제베르메 토네 digdan 이게 나로네 좀 된디게 남 용자기 된바 시디 맞아 로전 제베르메 된 송도 냠네 제당 rimbe 돈 송도가 어디가라는지 이제 툴을 샤바나스.
So in terms of the in terms of the Four Noble Truths and in the sense of how they're definitively the definitive number of them, the definitively four, not more or less, and how the Buddha has stated these Four Noble Truths in particular sequences. So actually they're sort of also they're stated in both terms of the cause and effect relationship between the Four Noble Truths, but they're also stated in the understanding that we have to generate, which is stated more in terms of our practice, and also in terms of that practice, I think it's very useful to take that example that is given. About having this sort of discernment that we are, of the oneself as being, in the analogy in relation to the Buddha being the doctor, ourselves as being in our condition being a patient, the Dharma as being the medicine to help cure us, and the Sangha as being the supportive medical staff. And so in relation to that example, what we have to do is take a look at our own suffering, and what causes does that suffering come from? And if we identify those causes, then is it possible to cause those make those to cause the cessation of those causes or not? And is there a method which allows us to bring it? Is there a cessation of the causes of suffering or not? suffering and the causes of suffering, and is there also a method which allows us to do that? So these also in relation to these kind of this both in terms of the sequence of the Four Noble Truths and in terms of the the definitive being definitively Four Noble Truths. Please sort of go over these. I encourage you to go over these again and again.
Mm-hmm. So now our time is almost finished. So there are few more things to say, but timing is very important because the mind, the brain, how it works, the scientists say not more than an hour, then everything go wasted. So it's a very good excuse to stop here. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and due to your kindness, I got quite a actually very great opportunity to listen to my teacher, and then I don't know how much the way I explained about the Four Noble Truths today, how much benefit is there to you, but I, for myself, there's a little bit of self-cherishing there. for my own benefit, due to that I need to give this class today, so I got a really good opportunity to listen from my teacher, and I feel very fortunate. So somehow there is a benefit in there. So and the most important is today what His Holiness spoke about. So please remember the great things what His Holiness said, and the most important, His Holiness said, the way how His Holiness studied, how he practiced, and then how these days he is feeling so confident in his practice. So these all he tried to explain in a very humble way, very simple way. So that's compared to our way of our capacity. So please try to 가수래 다디 군딩 숭딘 땡제 아니 사면 어이바 군딩 숭딜 땡제 아니 군딩 단다 봐도 굴레견 샤바 되게 나로래야 아니 냠내 지난지 아니 ngaran 주기 경고를 미치 냠내 간데 스나바나신 ngaran 주에 냠내 체투야 단다 군din리야 아니 냠년랑 베다라 디단디 용도 우스지 송야데 마란주레 용투야지 네버도 마란주 슈 잡토지 우리스.
And so taking his the words of His Holiness as a kind of basis, and seeing how seeing how much tremendous effort and hard work His Holiness has put in, but also to for us to, in a sense, to try to emulate His Holiness's practice in some way or other, to try and practice in a a similar kind of way, or to try and follow in his footsteps of that practice, and the way he talks about the signs the positive signs which have come from his practice, and therefore we really sort of make a strong effort and sort of commitment to try to bring about those kind of practices within ourselves. So on the basis of what His Holiness has spoken about.
아란주 동일 삼로 땅같이 요래데 셈나 쪼와하게 게임도와 장ran 딱 지금 하천으로 진행시다 지금 정문이 하고 말로 당하랑 아래 좋아하시고다 아니 장주부 셈 삼로 땅도 전에 아니 지기 심진 타게스도 전에 가능한 게 게임도와 정부시나
민도.
가와게 심진 탐지에서도 셈나로 가와게
Yeah.
다 여러분 부지에게 다라실 송도가 저기 차다몽 숨기 아니 계속이 시고라 아니 텐딩네 요마레스도 셈나로를 신네 로디부 차도 왔어 군주 디송도 와 아니 아니 지금 다 심진 탐지기 된다 이제 다 지금 추적 톤 멤버 삼로당에 두스 그봐 지금 란주기 추적 톤 상로마당 보이나냐 지기지를 땜버디 그지 시기요레스 얘나야 다 추적 톤의 시험도 전에 심진 탐지기 된 루비아를 하서지 다 딜을 하지 지금이 두스네 뽑기 두스 심지 탐지기 된지 루비 중나사나 뽑기 두스 공동 뒷가는 것도 봐 양양도 다 디종 아주 이게 들이 하이라이트 제거해 드리 군중이 디송고면도 아 전주심 계속 커도 송고면도 제로제로 지 송고도 와 돈이 또 송고면도 와 이는 또로또로 시그상도 와 딱 띠띠기 된다 가르 송고도 쓰나 완전히야 또 송네 완전히 개 팬도 개요 말이 정보셨나 군중이 들래 돈이 또 뭔가 초화된 리치리도 세야 돼 완전 디고고요서 봐 이거 고고요 다 늦을라 소베 에 군중기다 지금 가로 대수디 양내 양도 지난 줄다 공부를 거거나 아니 되게 도지체
카림시 한번 이제 저랑 디서를 배 저랑 득니를 셈부터미나 아니 데보 메버도시 차두래 다 카리 janchuki semgebine ganangdo leongre somre be konde the line this ched
ale sulasi기
chandi chandugni la sembotamiina
아주 상관없이 왜 아주 차시 또 제장가 동일 삼로 땅도 전배 아니 딜이야 가나게야 김도가 당신 유튜브 동아래서도 sem나 소화게 기금도 봐 지난 겨울은 치기 양양도 가르친 것도 송나 차다모송기 시작하라 아니 그 유화말이 장원의 민족세 그 상록콘데 신이 지금 sem나로야 가와기도 송에 중도가 양양도 어디서 당하는 줄 하고 지고도스
And so what is Holiness was let's say this morning when he was talking he was sort of explaining for I don't know about all of you but when we talk about suffering and there's a sense of sort of unpleasant sensation, and maybe when we talk about bodhicitta also when we talk about the happiness of all sentient beings, it's hard for us to really feel delight in some way. When we think about emptiness, there's some way in which we don't have a kind of there's not a sort of real sense of experiential sense of sort of joy in it in some way. And what His Holiness said this morning was, for instance, in relation to emptiness, he said about how in terms of the three poisons, and then the real foundational basis of the three poisons, when you see that the foundational basis of the three poisons really doesn't exist, or things don't exist from their own side, the foundational basis of those poisons doesn't really exist, then there's a kind of strong sense of joy, and in terms of his Holiness also said in terms of working in terms of all the welfare of all sentient beings, and how from the perspective of the Dharma, from his perspective, when he thinks about working for the welfare of all sentient beings, then he has a sense of like a real sense of courage arises. And so these are the kind of highlights that we need to take away from the teaching that His Holiness gave to us. We need to really sort of focus on these things. And His Holiness didn't say, I've completely developed bodhicitta. He didn't say I've fully realized emptiness. He sort of talks about it, and it's on its way. I'm on the way. I'm close. He sort of talks about it in that way. And what His Holiness is doing here is that kind of feeling that he describes to us is actually before things like bodhicitta or emptiness have been generated, produced. Is that he's giving us a sense of feeling that perhaps we could relate to a little bit. And so in terms of His Holiness's these kind of highlights and His Holiness's advice in relation to these things, we need to bring them to mind again and again, and think about the importance of them.
So thank you very much, Tushita. And now let's do a dedication, should we?
Yes, Rinpoche.
Okay.
Rinpoche, can we offer Thanksgiving mandala, please?
Oh, sure.
Sashi Peki Jojing Me Tok Tram Re Rab Ling Ni Te Gempa Di Sange Zing Do Mik Teo Wai Trokun Nam Dak Zing La Chirpa Chok. May my Venerable Lama's life be firm, his white divine action spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losang always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 realms. Idam Guratna Mandala Kanyayatayami. Could Rinpoche lead us in the dedications, Rinpoche, please?
Okay. So I will do that in Tibetan. Is it okay?
Of course, Rinpoche.
Okay. Jidir tebe dana ribo shi ninan zanan fishen radan samje nana samne jungwai namje lo ye tezum chebar sho kare rawe gowe shingam su benan dewa malu junwe ne chere son tenzin jazo ye shabe side pado tengyur chi Dewa gundu yangda lama dan zhemi chuji beda dong jujin sadan namji yunde rabzo ne doji changi goban yudu sho jambe bo yunji zira jamba na gundu sambo denyang di shinde deda gunyi jesu dalo chi gewa deda tamji rabdo Tuzum shebe gewa tamche di ngowa kama chodo nga bade dajin gewe tsawa di gun jang sambo shuje rado warangi tenpa renjin choge ma chawa chab jang nyambar gyube chodir ne nyingji chimbu yirbu gyoba ye pelde dede sewar chebar sho changjo simjo rambo che manje panam gejo Gewa nyamba meba yang kone gondo so and let's also pray to the Mother Tara this morning. His Holiness really emphasize this pandemic and the war, this war. So we especially that we have to pray to Mother Tara and to the Tara recitations, mantra recitations. So please keep this in your mind. And then be compassionate as much as you can, starting from today. Not only today. Most people think, today I do my best, tomorrow I will become ordinary. Try your best to be extraordinary every day. So thank you very much and stay safe. Thank you, Tushita, and thank you, Simon, and Anya from Lama Tsongkhapa. Thank you. And thank you all. And thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche, for giving us this precious teaching. Please, please, Rinpoche, we hope that we can receive teachings very soon again. Thank you so much, Simon Love. Thank you so much, Venerable Sayana, Iki, for helping us to figure out everything. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't thank Rinpoche more. We could laugh. A great Sakadava, and we still have a program at Tushita with light offerings and the course, and we have a few courses coming up on shamatha and transforming our emotions and more teaching with Jado Rinpoche and Yangten Rinpoche. So you can go on our website, and we wish you a great Sakadava. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening in India, wherever you are, whichever time zone. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tushita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tushita.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you, Venerable Sayana. Ciao. Thank you, Ikila, Simon La.
Thank you.